Derek Sivers built a $22 million business and gave it all away at the peak of his success. And here's what's interesting. This was his first business. He wasn't an entrepreneur and had no business plan. He was just a musician selling his CDs online. When fellow musicians asked, "Can you sell my CDs too?" he said yes. Soon his company, CD Baby, became the biggest platform for independent musicians. Unlike traditional business owners chasing rapid growth, Derek kept things simple and fun. No investors, no corporate nonsense. He treated his customers like friends and built a business that served his life, not the other way around. Then, at the height of its success, he made a shocking decision. Instead of selling for personal profit, he gave it all away to fund music education. Why would someone do that? And more importantly, what can beginner business owners like you and me learn from his unconventional approach to business? Well, turns out I'm not the only one wondering. Many entrepreneurs kept asking Derek for advice, so he decided to pack his 10 years of business experience into a book titled Anything You Want. In this video, I'll share 31 powerful business lessons from the book and reveal why he gave away the company. Let's get started. Number 1, start with simple business plans. A business plan should never take more than a few hours of work, hopefully no more than a few minutes. The best plans start simple. When Derek started his own online store, he didn't know how to set the price for his CD. So he went to the local store that sold local musicians' CDs and asked how much the store would take if he sold his CD there. The salesgirl replied, "You set the selling price at whatever you want. We keep $4 a cut and we pay you every week. That's it." Derek went home and put it on his website. "You set the selling price at whatever you want. We keep a flat $4 cut and we pay you every week." Derek also needed to spend some time to add a new album to the site, so he charged a $35 setup fee. 6 years and $10 million later, those same two numbers were the sole income of the company. So don't overthink it. Just start. Number 2, don't wait for funding. Your idea doesn't need funding to start. You also don't need an MBA, a big client, or someone's endorsement. You just need to start. When Richard Branson's flight was canceled, he went to the gate and asked if everyone wanted to split the cost to lease a small plane to fly to their destination. And that is how Virgin Airlines started. When you start small, it helps you to focus on solving real problems for real people. Derek also started small. His focus was to sell music online because there were no distributors that would sell independent music online. He took a few days to create his website. It was a list of a few CDs with a buy now button. That's it. For the first year, that's all the site did. And that's all it needed to become profitable. He spent $500 to start the website. The first month, he earned back $300. The second month, he made $700. And it was profitable since then. Number 3, focus on customer service as your priority. Customer service is not an expense to be minimized. It's a core profit center, like sales. It's where you should put your best people. Hire the sweetest, most empathetic people, and make sure they all have the time and resources they need to make your customers very happy. Companies focus so much on getting new customers, but keeping existing customers happy is a better investment. Because if they like you, they'll tell other people. Imagine what you'd do if your favorite actor called. You'd drop everything and give them all the time in the world. That's how you should treat everyone that contacts your company. When musicians were asked why they chose CD Baby, the answer was, they reply to my emails. They pick up the phone. You can talk to a real person. Remember, customer service is everything. When you truly care about your customers, they feel it. They remember it. And most importantly, they tell everyone about you. Number 4, either hell yeah or no. Use this rule if you're often overcommitted or too scattered. When deciding whether to do something, if you feel anything less than, wow, that would be amazing, absolutely, hell yeah, then say no. Every event you get invited to, every request to start a new project, if you're not saying, hell yeah, about it, say no. When you say no to most things, you create space in your life to work on the thing that makes you say, hell yeah. We're all busy. We've all taken on too much. Saying yes to only the most important thing is the way out. Number 5, don't punish everyone for one person's mistake. Look, I'm pretty sure you've seen these signs. All orders are final. Absolutely no refunds. Restroom for customers only. The poor business owner needs a hug. Someone did a bad thing. Now everyone else gets punished. As a business owner, it's tempting to make a big, grand policy to prevent it from happening again. When you're angry with one customer, that's the worst time to make a new policy. When one customer treats you badly, don't forget about all the good customers you have. Don't punish everyone for one person's mistake. Number 6, learn to delegate as you grow. You're so busy doing everything yourself. You know you need help, but to find and train someone would take more time than you have. So you keep working harder until you break. Derek shares a story where after 3 years and 8 employees, he was still doing everything himself, working 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. Every 5 minutes, his employees would have a question for him. It was hard to get anything done while answering questions all day. He hit his breaking point to the extent he stopped going to the office and shut off his phone. Then he realized he had to fix that. So what he did was, every time his employee had a question, he would gather all his employees around. Only then he answered that question in front of everyone to make sure everyone could learn. He would explain the thought process and philosophy behind his answer. For example, always remember that helping musicians is our first goal, and profit is second. You have my full permission to use that guideline to make these decisions yourself in the future. Do what makes them happiest. Make sure everyone who deals with us leaves with a smile. He made sure everyone understood and asked one person to jot it down in the manual. 10 minutes later, new question, same process, repeat. Gather around, answer, explain the philosophy, make sure everyone understands, someone jot it down in the manual. After 2 months, there were no questions. Later on, he started working at home and called in once a week to make sure everything was okay. Because the team was running the business, he was free to work on improving the business. He spent his time on improvements, optimizations, and innovations, which felt like play to him. While he was away, his company grew from $1 million to $20 million in 4 years, from 8 to 85 employees. There's a big difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. Being self-employed feels like freedom until you realize that if you take time off, your business crumbles. To be a true business owner, make sure you could leave for a year, and when you come back, your business will be doing better than when you left. Number 7, handle customer complaints gracefully. Loud people are loud people, whether complaining or praising. So when you get some loud complaint, use that opportunity to make them so happy that they become a loud advertisement for your business. When you feel attacked by the customers, the best thing to do is to lose the fight. If you catch yourself replying to them with even just a little bit of aggression, stop and replace it with something humble and generous. I know it's hard to not fight back, especially when you know they are wrong, but let them know that they were right and the company was wrong. Tell them you're prepared to do whatever it takes to make them happy again. Number 8, let your team own their work. An employee says to the boss, I've been working for the past 2 weeks on this new design. What do you think? The boss says, good job. Maybe just change the blue to gold, change the word giant to huge, and get rid of the border. Other than that, it's great. Now, because the boss said so, the employee will have to make those changes. But there's a big downside. The employee no longer feels full ownership of their project. Then you wonder why they're not motivated. Imagine this instead. The employee says, I've been working for the past 2 weeks on this new design. What do you think? The boss says, It's perfect. Great work. This slight change made a huge difference in the psychology of motivation. Now that person can feel full ownership of this project. He'll be happy to get involved and be more committed to future projects. The boss's opinion is not necessarily better than anyone else's. But once you're the boss, your opinion is dangerous because it's not just one person's opinion anymore, it's a command. So adding your 2 cents can really hurt morale. You shouldn't give your opinion on everything just because you can. Obviously, if there's more than 2 cents worth of stuff that needs to change, then this rule does not apply. But if your contribution is small and just an opinion, let it go. Let the other person feel full ownership of the idea instead. Number 9, keep operations casual. You don't have to try to impress the MBA professors with your formal business process. It's okay to be casual. Derek shares a story where he was too busy, so he'd just ask his current employees if they had any friends who needed work. Someone always did, so he said, Tell them to start tomorrow morning, $10 an hour, show them what to do. And that was that. It's almost impossible to tell what someone's going to be like on the job until he's actually done it for a few weeks. So he'd hire lightly and fire lightly. Luckily, he didn't need to fire that often. The fact that the new hires were friends of friends helped with the trust part. To be fair, this was a mail-order CD store, so most of his employees were in the warehouse. Nonetheless, he also took this same casual approach when he needed an important high-tech systems worker. Anyone have a friend who's good with Linux? Yeah? Is he cool? Okay, tell him to start tomorrow. That's how he found 2 guys who were amazing and important at CD Baby for many years. Number 10, skip the business jargon. MBA kind of people would talk about LOI, ROI, NDAs, IPOs, and all kinds of fancy terms that have nothing to do with helping customers. Derek was once asked, What's your growth rate? What's your retained earnings rate as a percentage of gross? What are your projections? They said if he analyzed it better, he could maximize profitability. And Derek replied, I have no idea. I don't even know what some of that means. I started this as a hobby to help my friends, and that's the only reason it exists. So instead of learning those fancy terms, just ask yourself, are you helping people? Are they happy? Are you happy? Are you profitable? Isn't that enough? If you're not sure what to prioritize, just ask your customers, how can I best help you now? Then focus on satisfying those requests. Number 11, not everyone is your customer. You know you can't please everyone, right? But notice that most businesses are trying to sell to everyone, and they wonder why they can't get people's attention. Derek was only targeting independent musicians for his business, not all musicians. You need to confidently exclude some people so that you can focus only on the people you want. This is a big world that we're living in. Just target 1% and ignore the other 99%. When that 1% knows you only focus on them, they will choose you because you've shown how much you value them. Number 12, execute and get feedback from customers. You have a business idea. So what to do now? You have to execute it. When you execute your idea, you will deal with the first few customers who will tell you what they really need. When Derek first launched CD Baby, his second customer asked for new releases from other musicians. He thought CD Baby was a store with a list of musicians that he could pick from. At that time, CD Baby acted only like PayPal. Other musicians had their own websites, and when people clicked the Buy Now button, they would be directed to CD Baby to make the payment. That's it, just like PayPal. PayPal hadn't been invented yet at that time. But then Derek changed his original plan and made CD Baby an online store, just like what that second customer expected it to be. What we can learn from this lesson is that we just need to launch our business idea. It doesn't have to be completely perfect to launch. When your customers say something, you can consider their feedback to further improve your business. Number 13, make a dream come true. Some people start a business from a problem they have. Like Derek, he started his business because he couldn't find a distributor that could sell his music. So, to start his business, he wrote down what he wanted, if he could find someone to sell his music. And here's what he wrote. In a perfect world, my distributor would 1. Pay me every week. 2. Show me the full name and address of everyone who bought my CD, because those are my fans, not the distributors. 3. Never kick me out for not selling enough. Even if I sell only one CD every 5 years, it'll be there for someone to buy. 4. Never allow musicians to pay extra to be shown first on the website, because it's not fair to those who can't afford it. Since Derek couldn't find a distributor who would do all these things, he built it himself. When you build something that fixes your own problem, other people with the same problem will want it too. So ask yourself, what would the perfect solution to my problem look like? Then go build that. Number 14, keep improving. Success comes from persistently improving and inventing, not from persistently doing what's not working. We all have lots of ideas, creations, and projects. When you present one to the world and it's not a hit, don't keep pushing it. Instead, get back to improving and inventing. If multiple people are saying, wow, yes, I need this. I'd be happy to pay you to do this. Then you should probably do it. But if the response is anything less, don't pursue it. Don't waste years fighting uphill battles against locked doors. Improve or invent until you get that huge response. Number 15, you don't need a big plan or vision. Do you have a big visionary master plan for how the world will work in 20 years? Do you have massive ambitions to revolutionize your industry? Don't feel bad if you don't, because you don't need one. A year and a half after starting CD Baby, it was just Derek and his first employee running the business from his house. Years later, after he had 100,000 musicians on his website and 85 employees, a journalist asked him, "What's your long-term goal?" He said, "I don't have one. I'm just trying to help musicians with whatever they need today." So please don't think you need a huge vision. Just stay focused on solving your customers' problems. Number 16, little things make all the difference. If you find even the smallest way to make people smile, they'll remember you more for that smile. For example, for every email Derek sent to his customers, he put the sender name as CD Baby Loves first name. So if the customer's name was Susan, every email she got would say it was from CD Baby Loves Susan. Customers loved this. And here's more. Every call from customers was answered within 2 rings. Always. 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. Phones were everywhere, so even if the customer service rep was busy, someone in the warehouse could pick up. All anyone had to do was say, "CD Baby." Customers loved this. It's so rare these days to call a company and have a real person answer right away. No, press 1. No, press 2. Other musicians always told Derek that's the reason they chose CD Baby, because they could always talk to a real person immediately. Not just that, his employees also took a minute to get to know the caller a bit. Ask about her music, ask how it's going. Yes, it would lead to 20-minute conversations sometimes, but those people became lifelong fans. Even if you want to be big someday, remember that you never need to act like a big, boring company. Number 17, you can afford to be generous. People love to support businesses that are generous. Think of all the examples of great service you've encountered. Free refills, letting you use the toilets even if you're not a customer, extra milk and sugar if you need it. Contrast those with all of the bad experiences you've had, not letting you use the toilets without making a purchase, charging an additional 25 cents for extra sauce, and salespeople who don't give you a minute of their time because you don't look like big money. All bad service comes from a mindset of scarcity. They act like they'll go out of business if they don't watch every penny. If you set up your business with a mindset of abundance and generosity, People will be happier to pay you. Give refunds, give them attention, take a little loss. You can afford it. Losing 25 cents on extra sauce can mean winning the loyalty of a customer who will spend $1,000 with you over the next 10 years. And tell 20 friends that you're awesome. Number 18, don't overpromise to your customer. In 2003, Derek was invited to Apple's headquarters. Steve Jobs himself presented that he wanted iTunes Music Store to have every piece of music ever recorded in this world. This was huge because until 2003, independent musicians were always denied access to the big outlets. For Apple to include songs from independent musicians on iTunes, that was amazing. But here's the problem. Due to the Apple software restriction, to be able to sell on iTunes, they could only use Apple software. That meant Derek had to pull each CD from the shelf again, stick it in a Mac, then cut and paste every song title into Mac software. But so be it. If that's what Apple needed, then okay. After signing the contract with iTunes and returning it the same day, Derek started building the system to deliver everyone's music to iTunes. Derek decided to charge $40 for this service, and 5,000 musicians signed up in advance. But there was another problem. iTunes wasn't getting back. Nobody at Apple would say anything after several months. Later on, when Steve Jobs made a worldwide keynote speech about iTunes, Derek found out that Steve Jobs had changed his mind. No independent music on iTunes. Derek had to refund all $200,000 that he had received. He emailed everyone to let them know what had happened. He removed all mention of iTunes from his site. He decided to make it a free service from that point on. But then, here's a plot twist. The very next day, Derek got his signed contract back from Apple. Apple changed its mind again to sell independent music. Derek started the transfer process immediately. Look, the example from Derek and Apple might be high level, but here's what we can learn. Never promise something to your customers until you're absolutely certain you can deliver. Number 19, delegate, but don't overdelegate. Derek trusted his team so much. He was trying to empower his employees, so he let them make decisions on their own. A local magazine even stated his company as the best place to work in their state. 6 months later, his accountant asked, "Did you know that your employees set up a profit-sharing program?" And Derek said, "Yes." By the way, a profit-sharing program is when a company gives employees a portion of the company's profits in addition to their regular pay. The accountant further asked, "Did you know that they're giving all of the profits of the company back to themselves?" Oops. When Derek canceled the program, he became very unpopular. His employees were trying to remove him from his own company. Derek then realized he had empowered his employees to the extent he had given them all the power. Then it was 85 employees versus him alone. He was thinking of repairing the relationship with all 85 employees, but if you've ever had a romance breakup, you know that sometimes it's beyond repair. Derek considered firing all 85 employees, but instead he retreated in solitude, stayed at his friend's house, and focused on programming a new software feature for CD Baby. He never saw or spoke to his employees again. Never saw the office again. In the book, Derek didn't specifically mention what happened next, but on his website, someone asked how the company kept functioning after that incident, and here are his own words. "I sold the company a year later, so for that last year, it ran without me. I think there was a lasting impact on the company culture, and I don't know what it was because I wasn't around. And yeah, it definitely impacted my joy. It was one of the worst times of my life." Lesson learned, too late. Delegate, but don't over-delegate. Number 20, a real person, a lot like you. Sarah ran a small online business out of her living room for 12 years. Last week, one of her clients sent her a 10-page long email filled with harsh criticism and personal insults. The email really broke her heart. The client also mentioned that she was going to sue Sarah for everything she was worth because of the mistake she made. Devastated, Sarah turned off her computer and cried. She shut off the phones and closed up shop for the day. She spent the whole weekend in bed, wondering if she should just give up. She was thinking maybe every insult in this client's letter was true, and she was actually no good at what she did, even after 12 years. The next day, she called the client to fix it. The client cheerfully took her call and said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I wasn't actually that upset. I was just in a bad mood and didn't think anyone would read my email anyway." When we yell at the vending machine, it's fine because they're not human. But when we yell at a website or company using our computer or phone, we forget it's a person that's affected. At the end of every computer is a real person, a lot like you, whose birthday was last week, who's lonely, and who is personally affected by what you say. If you're Sarah, would it be easy for you to just forget that? Perhaps never forget it again. So treat everyone, customers, employees, just everyone, nicely. Be kind. Number 21. Silence means unclear. Derek shares a story where he used to write an email to about 2 million customers. If the email wasn't clear, he'd get 20,000 confused replies, which would take his staff all week to reply. It also cost him $5,000 plus. Even if he was very clear by explaining in longer sentences, he'd still get thousands of replies from people who never read past the first few sentences. Writing that email to customers would take him all day. He needed to carefully eliminate every unnecessary word and rewrite every sentence to make sure it could not be misunderstood. Because if he had one unclear sentence, he'd get a $5,000 penalty. Derek's story about emails applies to our websites and ads too. When our message isn't clear, people get confused. But they can't reply like email. They just leave silently. So remember, silence often means your message wasn't clear enough. Number 22. Prepare to double. No matter what business you're in, it's good to prepare for what would happen if business doubled. Have 10 clients now? How would it look if you had 20 at once? Serving 80 customers for lunch each day? What would happen if 160 showed up? Never be the typical small business that gets stressed and freaked out when business is doing well. It sends a message: I can't handle this. Instead, if you prepare in a way that you can handle twice your existing load, it sends an attractive message. Come on in. We've got plenty of room. Number 23. It's about being, not having. When you sign up to run a marathon, you don't want a taxi to take you to the finish line. Derek shares a story where when he first started his website, he only knew some basic knowledge on creating a website. But as the site grew, his tech friends told him he had to improve his website with advanced programming knowledge. Since he couldn't afford to hire a programmer, he bought programming books and learned it himself. It was a slow road, but he loved it. To him, it wasn't just his business, it was his creation. He said outsourcing the programming would be like a band outsourcing the songwriting. In the last few years, his employees were mad that new features were not being added as fast as they wanted, because he insisted on doing all the programming himself. They said they were losing millions of dollars in business because they didn't have certain features. But that was okay with him. He loved the process. He was happy. Yes, it may take longer. Yes, it may be inefficient. Yes, it may even cost you millions of dollars in lost opportunities because your business is growing slower. But the whole point of doing anything is because it makes you happy. In the end, it's not about the stuff that you can get, but it's about who you become. For example, things like money, company, and finished projects are just tools. The real win is becoming someone like a skilled entrepreneur, or a great programmer, or just someone who's happy doing what he loves. Number 24, know what you want, not what society wants. Some people want to work alone. Some people want to be billionaires with thousands of employees. Some want to be famous, some want to be unknown. No matter which goal you choose, there will be lots of people telling you, you should do this and that. For example, when your business takes off, people expect you to be big, as big as can be. But do you? Really? Everyone assumes that as the owner of a company, you'll be the traditional CEO, having fancy lunches with other high-powered CEOs and doing all the big business deals. But what if you don't like doing that? What if what you love the most is working quietly by yourself? Or simply talking to customers? Just pay close attention to what excites you and what drains you. Derek says he loves sitting alone and programming, writing, planning, and inventing, thinking of ideas and making them happen. This makes him happy, not business deals or management. So he found someone who liked doing business deals and put him in charge of all that. He was also happier with 5 employees than with 85, and happiest working alone. So know what you want. You don't need to impress others. Number 25, how do you grade yourself? We all grade ourselves by different measures. For some people, it's how much money they make. When their net worth is going up, they know they're doing well. For some people, it's how much money they give. For some people, it's how many people's lives they can influence for the better. For some, it's how many useful things they can create, whether songs, companies, articles, websites, or anything else. How about you? How do you grade yourself? It's important to know in advance to make sure you're staying focused on what's honestly important to you, instead of doing what others think you should. Number 26, trust but verify. Derek once hired a guy to do the most important job in the company. This guy had to deliver music to all digital music retailers like iTunes, Amazon, Yahoo, and 50 more. This was the main reason why independent musicians loved CD Baby. Derek built a system that did most of the work, but it still needed someone to run the output and ship it to retailers. He hired a guy who seemed good and sat side by side with him for a week, showing him everything that needed to be done. This new guy had to sign a contract with Derek in huge letters. Every album, to every company, every week, no matter what. Derek also explained how critical that job was to the company's success. The first few weeks went well. A few months later, he started hearing a lot of complaints from customers, saying that their music hadn't been sent to these companies. He called the guy to ask what was going on. The employee admitted that he'd been overwhelmed with the huge amount of tasks and was behind schedule. Derek asked him again about his main responsibility. He said, I know, every album, every company, every week, no matter what, but I've been busy. Derek was shocked. This wasn't just a small mistake. They hadn't sent music to several major retailers for months. The company's reputation was being damaged with every passing day. Despite the employee understanding the importance of his role, he had failed at the one thing that mattered most. Derek then flew back to the company to let him go. For the next 6 months, Derek lived at the warehouse, working 15 hours a day to catch up with the work that was supposed to be done by that guy. Lesson learned: trust, but verify. Number 27, don't be careless with official paperwork. Ever since Derek was a teenager, his dad officially sent him things to sign for the family business. Derek didn't understand these complex documents, so he'd just sign without question. 4 years before Derek started CD Baby, he was recording his first album, so he needed to borrow $20,000 from his dad to buy studio equipment. His dad suggested, instead of lending you money, start a corporation. Then the family business can buy shares in your corporation. Derek then created a company called Hit Media Inc. His dad's company bought some shares, and Derek got the money he needed for his music studio. 4 years later, when Derek started CD Baby, He went to the bank to open a new account. The bank employee said, "Just put CD Baby under your Hit Media account instead of creating a new one." It seemed strange since CD Baby was a new business, but it saved a little time and $100, so Derek agreed. Many years later, when he went to the bank, only then did he realize his father owned 90% of his company. It turned out one of those papers he signed without question had sold 90% of the shares of Hit Media to his dad's company. And since CD Baby was connected to Hit Media, that meant his dad also owned 90% of CD Baby. Derek couldn't be mad at his dad. His dad was just helping him back then, and nobody thought his hobby would grow into a multi-million-dollar business. But to fix this mistake, Derek couldn't just pay back the original $20,000. The tax rules said he had to pay what the company was actually worth then. So Derek had to pay $3.3 million to buy back the 90% of his own company. So make sure you understand what you're signing in any paperwork, even if it's given by family members. Number 28. How do you know you're done? One of the questions Derek got a lot is, how do you know when it's time to sell your company? His answer is short. You'll know. But here's some background story. Derek thought he would never sell his company. In 2004, when the radio did a story about him, he said he'd stick to it until the end. In 2007, he redid his website software from scratch. He was proud of it. It was the culmination of his programming knowledge that he'd been learning for 10 years. After a successful relaunch of the website, he was looking at his 2008 plan and beyond. But the problem was, he wasn't excited about any of them. The next week, he received calls from 3 companies asking if he'd be interested in selling his company. As usual, the answer was no, like the past 10 years. But that weekend, he started wondering, what if I sold? He asked for advice from Seth Godin, and he said, if you care, sell. His lack of enthusiasm was doing a disservice to his clients. It would be better if other motivated people helped his clients to grow. He let 2 companies bid and ended up selling the company to the one with the lowest bid. It was never about the money. He'd known the president of that company for years, and he'd always felt they'd do a better job of running CD Baby than he would. That night, he slept longer than he had in months. Number 29. Why you need your own company. We all need a place to play. Kids need playgrounds and sandboxes. Musicians need an instrument. Scientists need a laboratory. Those of us with business ideas, we need a company. Not for the money, but because it's our place to experiment, create, and turn thoughts into reality. We need to pursue our intrinsic motivation. The happiest people are not lounging on beaches. They're engaged in interesting work. Your company is your playground. It's your place to play. Number 30, ignore the corporate formalities. After CD Baby grew to 50 employees, all the business-to-business service companies started pitching Derek on how he needed an official employee review plan, business training, terms and conditions postings, and all this corporate crap. If you receive similar pitching, you can say no to all of it. There are thousands of businesses like Jim's Fishing Shop near a beach somewhere that are doing just fine without corporate formalities. As your business grows, never let salespeople talk you into all that stuff they pretend you need. They'll play on your fears, saying that you need this stuff to protect yourself against lawsuits. They'll scare you with horrible worst-case scenarios, but those are just sales tactics. You don't need any of it. Number 31. The gift is to give. 2 friends were at a party at a billionaire's extravagant estate. One said, "Wow, look at this place. This guy has everything." The other said, "Yes, but I have something he'll never have." Enough. When Derek decided to sell his company, he knew he already had enough. He lived simply. He didn't own a house, a car, or even a TV. He said the less he owned, the happier he was. The lack of stuff gave him the freedom to live anywhere, anytime. So he didn't need or even want the money from the sale of the company. He just wanted to make sure he had enough for a simple, comfortable life. The rest should go to music education since that's what made a difference in his life. So Derek created a charitable trust for music education. When he dies, all of its assets will go to music education. But while he's alive, it pays out 5% of its value per year to him. A few months before he sold the company, he transferred the ownership of his company and all other intellectual property, like trademarks and software, into the trust. When the new owner bought his company for $22 million, the money went to that trust. He said giving these all away made him the happiest. He gets the deeper happiness of knowing the success he'd had will benefit tons of people, not just him alone. But most of all, he gets the constant, priceless reminder that he has enough. What we can learn here from this lesson is that we need to know how much is enough. Because if we don't, we'll be trapped in the hustle loop. All right, of those 31 tips we just discussed, the most important and the hardest one to implement is tip number 6, learn to delegate. Your business should run independently without you. Otherwise, you can't take a break. If you want to learn how to make your business run without you, check out the video you see on your screen. It is a summary of the book titled Buy Back Your Time. Thanks for watching.